Hey, folks, welcome to the Bradley J. Show. Today, we're going to talk tariffs and tariffs as it applies to automotive stuff. Like, how much will your next car cost? Will it cost a lot more? With us is automotive writer and rock and roller Craig Fitzgerald from DCR Marketing. They do a lot of marketing for automotive companies. But Craig's roots go way back into writing for, well, Hemmings and tell us your history.
Hemmings, Boston Globe. I worked for Gatehouse Media for a long time. So, yeah, I've written a lot of places over the years.
There's nothing about cars that you don't know. It's true. There's
There's
really
a
nothing.
lot about cars I don't know, but I could talk about them. How about that?
Pretty hard to
I
stump
can
you.
make stuff up as we go.
And we've been doing broadcasts for, I don't know, it's just kind of scary, like 10 years?
10 years? Yeah.
10?
I was on your BZ show. Yeah. That was probably 2015. I bet it was.
Ah, man.
2015, maybe 2016.
Whoa. Okay.
It's been a while.
Yes. It's scary how
I
when
was
you're
a
young,
lot less gray and
when you're young, time crawls along.
Yeah.
First grade, so slow. Second grade, summertime sucks for me. I hated it because it was like boring.
Yeah.
And now 10 years goes by. Just
in an instant.
And I'm really scared about the next 10 years. Like, will that be even quicker? Anyway, let's get into the tariffs. And that's kind of an abstract for a lot of people. What is a tariff?
I mean, it's a tax on goods shipped here to the United States. So, if you want some leverage with whoever's shipping you whatever, auto parts or completed cars or whatever it is, and you want some leverage, on them, it basically can, the ostensibly can start to impact your trade deficit with a country that you have a trade deficit with. You want to sell more to them. You want to buy less from them. Tariffs are a way to do that.
Okay. And one thing I
should say, and it's also very protectionist, right? So in the 80s, I think the one thing everybody can understand about tariffs and how it changed the automotive business was the quote unquote chicken tax that was on small pickup trucks that came into the United States from Japan.
Why is it called chicken tax?
There's a long story behind it, but that's what it was. It was a tariff on small trucks. So trucks built in Japan that were sent here that we bought by the millions in the 1970s, we decided that was dangerous for the automotive industry. We tariffed those trucks, the completed trucks, and then started building our own small trucks here in the United States with like the Ford Ranger and Chevy S10. And we just basically built an automotive market here based on vehicles that had come from Japan at the time. Like, we didn't build a small truck until the Japanese did. And then we saw how many people were buying those, and we said, whoa, hold on. We want to slow that process down.
Okay.
And then now the other thing that it impacted, I will say, for the positive, was that all of those companies started building plants here. So it, after the 1980s, when we went through all that, Honda had a plant here. Then they were the first. Then Nissan, then Toyota, and they all started building vehicles right here in the United States and employing American workers, not necessarily union workers, which we'll get to. I'm sure.
Okay.
Talking.
Something I should have said right in the beginning is that there's this huge misconception that the country shipping the stuff to us pays the taxes. That's the tariff, which is a tax. That's not true. You do.
Yeah, I mean, there is a tariff collection process, right? So China will pay that tariff, but it's not like that there is no impact to you as the customer, right? So as the consumer. So there has never been ever a price increase that you haven't absorbed as the consumer, right? So when the price of goods increases for whatever reason, I don't care if it's a tariff, I don't care if it's just scarcity in the market,
or bird flu,
whatever it is, you're going to pay that. So the immediate result is that the things that you buy are going to be more expensive.
So what are the reasons? Why do it? I mean, I can tell you, to shorten things, there's a couple of reasons. One is just as a leverage thing. If you want China to do something unrelated, you say, look, we want you to let's say we want you to stop sending troops somewhere.
Right.
If you don't do that, we're going to, levy a 20% tariff on all your goods. And another one is, as you say, to help domestic industry.
Correct.
And is there anything else?
I mean, there's a million reasons to do
just to raise money.
So there's a million reasons. The tariffs that we're talking about with Canada and Mexico, we want them to do something. We want them to, whatever it is, send fewer people here. I don't know what it is.
Right. I'm sure in Mexico, they want the government to kind of buckle down on immigration.
Right.
And in Canada, it says it's about fentanyl.
We send more drugs to Canada than they send here. It's like anybody who's ever spent any time on Route 91 in Vermont understands that, right? Like,
I don't know what goes on there.
On the way.
Is there a lot of drugs on Route 91?
Oh my God! Like Brattleboro, Burlington, like all the way up 91. That's a drug highway.
Do they sell drugs like they sell jewelry out in Native Americans sell jewelry?
Yeah, I mean, they're on their way to Montreal. They're on their way to Montreal. They sell a ton of drugs up there. So that's the reality, right? Anybody who's lived up there kind of knows that.
Okay. All right, then. How much? The question in the title is, so how much more might my next car cost because of these tariffs?
Totally depends on where it's coming from, right? So I don't know if people understand that there's like two different sets of things going on here. One is China, and what we're saying is, across the board, 10% tariff on, basically everything coming out of China, and then a higher percentage on things like steel and aluminum. Now they're talking about that. But the thing that people don't understand is we buy very little from China in terms of steel and aluminum. We buy a decreasing percentage all the time. We buy very few completed cars from China. I mean, it's in the single digits. So
7.
Lincoln, yeah, it's probably 7. I bet you. Let's see. So it's like Lincoln Nautilus. The Buick, I can't remember what the Buick model is, but there's one Buick model that's built in China. There's 2 Polestars, which are Volvo's electric car, and there's some odds and ends of things. So let's say 7. Let's say 7 cars, and it probably totals 100,000 units in total. So who cares, right? We don't buy any cars from them. So those cars might go up 10%, but nobody buys them anyway. And then on the auto parts side, the parts that go into a new car, we buy about 10% of our overall automotive production from China, right? So all of those parts that get assembled here in the United States, we may be buying them from anywhere in the world, but we buy about 10% of those from China. So there'll be a 10% tariff on those things. So that's one thing.
What about iPhones? My next iPhone going to be more expensive too?
All of those things. Yeah.
Apple is an American company, but the parts get made. They get assembled in China. So does they pay a tariff?
Absolutely. And the same with like the Buick model, for example. That's an American company. It's an American plant. Just happens to be in China, but we're going to tariff it because it comes from China.
Have those tariffs kicked in yet?
There's some form of tariff in there already, that's sort of baked into this. I don't know what it is.
I was going to get a new iPhone. I was going to get a new iPhone a month ago. Maybe I should.
You should probably get it now, right?
Well, unless the tariffs have already kicked in.
Right, they may have already kicked in. And the thing is, like with an iPhone, like how much did you pay for your last iPhone? I have no idea what my last iPhone cost because it was part of my plan. I have no idea. You know, it could have been zero. It could have been $1,000. I have no idea.
I used to do that thing that you're
Yeah.
talking about. No more.
Yeah.
I buy it and that's it.
So
And,
the
and
bigger
then next,
thing,
I
Brad,
trade it in for what it's worth, and then I buy it. I don't know why. There's something about that plan business bothered me. I can't
I
remember.
hate it. I hate all of it. I hate
I hate
subscription
having
service.
people have their hooks
Yeah.
in me. Also, as an aside, subscriptions. I'm getting subscription burn. Subscription for everything. Stuff you used to buy like
A lot of
software,
fatigue. Yeah.
Canva.
Yeah.
$9.99. Spotify,
Yeah.
$11.99. I'm getting nickel and dimed, death
You
by
are.
1,000.
You're getting 10'd and 20'd every
And you know what? And you know what happens? You sign up, you use it some, and then you don't use it, and you forget, and
Right.
it's there.
It's
I
in
wish there was some
perpetuity, yeah.
sort of subscription keeper. You know how there's a password keeper? I wish
Yeah.
there was a subscription organizer.
Yeah,
somewhere.
there are actually. There are. Rocket Money is a pretty good one. They'll find
right.
all the ones that you're not using.
All right.
So anyways, as far as the tariffs go, like the Chinese tariff on auto production, it's minimal, right? It's not going to make any difference one way or another. The big thing is the tariff for Canada and for Mexico, which I'll be honest with you, I have no idea what the point of that is, because like we have a trade agreement with Mexico and Canada. We had one that was called NAFTA. The two administrations ago didn't like that. They always hated NAFTA. Completely renegotiated a new trade agreement with both Canada and Mexico, signed off on it, and now that same administration doesn't like that agreement anymore and wants to sort of develop a new one. So there's we essentially built the automotive industry in Canada. We built the automotive industry in Mexico, and we built it in China, right? And the reason that we did it was because we wanted to exploit cheap labor, and we also wanted to have a market to sell to, right? So in the 1980s, China was closed to the United States. We couldn't do any business there. And then, that country opened in the 1980s. And you could see it. There were articles in the Harvard Business Review, and you could almost watch the planes from Logan Airport flying right to Detroit, full of people from Bain Capital and from KPMG and from McKinsey and all of these consulting agencies, with that article tucked under their arm saying, hey, you know what? You can not only save a ton of money by building stuff in China, you also have a market of 1.4 billion people that will buy your products that don't right now. And they all looked at that and played the short game and said, yes, we're in. I mean, nobody from the UAW was hoping that, their jobs would disappear to China, right? That wasn't going to happen. So what happened was we built those industries around the world for cheap labor. Now we don't like that anymore. We don't like the cheap labor anymore. But what we're finding is that not only did we build these industries in these foreign countries, but we also built a very prosperous middle class there, right? So the average income for a Chinese auto worker has gone from pennies to pretty significant money. I mean, your average auto worker in China makes about half now what an American auto worker would make. It's about half.
I heard the same thing
it used to be 100th,
I heard the same thing happened in India with customer support.
Yeah.
It's
getting more expensive.
Housing prices in certain communities went up. The standard of living went up.
Yep.
And because
That's
all of a sudden everybody had these jobs.
So what happens is now you've sort of formed this thing. Now you would ask, like, what is the point? What is the point of all this? And I think the long point is, geez, it's not as cheap as it used to be. So why don't we make a big stink and then try to move some of that some of that industry back to the United States.
Okay.
The
Because it's
problem,
not as cheap because the middle class standard of living went up, it got more
exactly.
expensive. It's not such a great deal anymore.
Yep,
And and our domestic industry does still suffer. So let's make a big hoopla and
correct.
say we're saving the world by bringing it back.
Correct. So now this is interesting. I looked at wages from 1989 to 2024. The average auto worker in 1989 was making about 25 bucks an hour, 24 bucks an hour in 1989. That was real good money in 1989. Currently, I mean, and I'm not talking about overtime and all that kind of stuff, but the average auto worker in the United States is making 45 something dollars an hour now, which is pretty good money. If you look at what the CEO made in 1989, it was just over $3 million a year, which is a ton of money in 1989. That was what
But still, it's not, it doesn't feel horrible.
Right now, Mary Barra makes $28 million a year. So the auto workers' pay has gone up 90% since 1989. The CEO pay has gone up 800% since 1989. And in the meantime, they've lost 20% market share.
So they get paid more for failing.
They get paid more for less.
How do they, how does that happen? Is it just, it's really hard to find a good CEO, so the demand is so high?
I guess, I don't know. I really don't understand that. So like if it's we don't want to pay people argument, well, that's not the argument, right? I mean, we're obviously paying the high end, we're paying management, but we're not paying, we're paying labor, but not commensurate with what they actually do. And those auto jobs get fewer and fewer all the time because things are, there's a lot more robotics than there were in the 1980s. There was a lot more computer, generation of automobiles than there ever was. So
at some point in the future, we'll just be sitting around. All of us just sitting around, because they'll have robots that can fix robots. They'll have robots that can fix themselves, that can build robots, that can fix them. We won't need to cook anything. By the way, and this is an aside, but we're just having fun. I'm almost to the point now where I want automated restaurants, because I go in, they have them around. There's one like a bubble tea kind of place. There's a lot of those where in my neighborhood on Harvard Ave, where there's like no persons.
Yeah.
You go in and you order at some sort of kiosk in the thing. There might be one person to just make sure you don't trash the place.
Right.
But I almost rather have automated restaurant. Like I'll order. I don't need to pay somebody to take my order. I'll do it on the machine. Like I get a lot of takeout and it burns my ass to pay. Okay. I got $40 worth of takeout food. And so $8 because you took my order. I'd rather do it myself and save $8.
Did you see the documentary on TCM about the automat in New York City?
No.
What you're describing is the automat, right? So in the 1920s or whatever, you'd go into this. My parents used to go there. Is giant restaurant. Everybody was there, all forms of life, right? So from the CEO all the way down to the guy who's washing the floors, right? All kinds of people were customers there. You'd walk in the front door and they had it was a wall of doors and it was these little cubby holes, and you'd put your nickel in and you'd open the thing and it's a slice of pie. And behind this door is a tuna fish sandwich. And, it was all automated, right? So quote unquote automated. Behind the doors, there was a staff of human beings that were making the food, right? But for your experience was completely automated. And I think, honestly, I do think we're going to get back to some version of that based on exactly what you're talking about, which is like, it was a nice experience for people because they just walked in the door. It was very affordable. The food was good quality. There's nothing wrong with that, and there's no reason why you couldn't have it again and be more automated than it was then.
I'm a terrible old person, a grumpy old man. I almost wish on those, where you pay, it's like, oh, I put my Apple Pay, which I do love Apple Pay.
Yeah.
Boop. Okay, fine. And then immediately they whip the thing around and you choose your tip. I wish there was an option. It was like 15%, 18%, 20%, and F you was, I wish you could choose F that.
Yeah.
as an option, or write in your own word, like whatever. No,
Yeah.
because it's nothing against them. And I was a waiter and I hated doing takeout because you didn't get paid.
Right.
But anyway, we're getting away from the thing. But actually, it's all about entertainment. So here's a question. Say you're not getting so many foreign vehicles in here because of the tariffs. Doesn't that drive up the price of domestic ones because of the increased demand?
Everything will, all of this, there's no way around driving up the price that you're currently paying, right? And right now, like, I think more than ever, a price increase is going to really, really hurt because I mean, I was looking at automotive news last week. The front page of automotive news is a little text box on the top that says the average new car loan monthly payment for December of 2024 was $735 a month. $735. Like, and that's a 60 to 72 month loan. So, that is, man, that's a pair of handcuffs that you cannot get off.
That's almost enough to pay the increased rent to move into the city.
Exactly.
And take the tea.
Exactly. So, like, all right, we're talking about China, there's tariffs on this. Let's say that goes up 10%. Well, maybe $73 doesn't sound like a lot, I guess, but $73 tacked on to $735. So now that your average auto loan payment is $800 a month, like, that's insanity. That is insanity. And then it's 25 from China. Like, all of a sudden, like, this becomes unsustainable. And the thing is, the thing that I want to caution people about or just make people understand is that we're not buying more and more cars every year. We're buying fewer and fewer cars every year. Like, the peak of my entire career was 2016. We sold 17,500,000 cars, 500,000 cars that year. That was the peak. We have never seen that many cars sold ever again. We're the pandemic hit us worse than it did China. We went from that high, and then 4 years later, we were down to, 15 million cars. Then in 2022, we went down under 14 million. And that was largely the price of gas that drove that. So, like, we're buying fewer and fewer cars all the time. And if you look at China's, auto sales domestically, they buy twice as many cars as we do. They buy 34 million cars a year. And their overall, since 2013, has been largely an upward swing. So they're buying way more cars than we are. They took less of a beating during the pandemic than we did. And so we're leveraging ourselves at this point. It's like, we're not going to buy more cars. And the price of cars is not going to come down. Like, I've never seen the price of cars come down ever.
No.
Right. So we're painted ourselves in a corner here. And I don't think that people understand, like, we have very few places to go that don't hurt, auto workers, that don't hurt dealerships, that don't hurt the people who work at dealerships. Like, it's a big industry in this country. It's super important. And if we're going to mess with it, we're going to end up really having a profound impact on the overall economy.
All right, Wayne, whom you know,
Love
Wayne Greenside, he knows lots of stuff. This is just a statement. There are parts within auto parts that could be made in China, such as parts of electronics that go into automobiles. That's just a statement.
Still, overall, it's 9.5% right now, and that's fallen from 18%. So we really, over the last 15 or 20 years, have bought less and less from China all the time, and
Okay.
that's the entire business. Now there's a when you talk about the automotive industry, there's another half of the automotive industry that's like what happens when you own the car. So there's a lot of like maintenance and, parts like that, oil filters and all of those kind of things, body parts. A lot of that comes from China. That has a significant impact. Less of that comes from Mexico and Canada. But what does come from Canada is the steel and aluminum. Like we're their biggest customer, steel and aluminum. So a 25% tariff on that is going to have an impact on everything associated to the automotive industry.
Unless domestically you could ramp that up and make it here.
Right. Who's going to do that, Bradley?
I'm just saying.
That? We're at 4% unemployment. Right. I mean,
that's true. That's true.
And we're going to kick out, hundreds of thousands of people out of the country who would normally do those jobs. Right.
It's interesting.
So like all of these moving parts, like none of them line up together. So I will say one thing that like the idea that we're going to, say we tariff the hell out of Canada and Mexico, and we say, you know what, we're going to start building cars here in the United States. We're going to make up the slack. We're going to build the cars here in the United States. Let's ignore the steel and aluminum tariff for a moment, right? They are not going to be UAW jobs. They're going to be in plants in Alabama and in Arkansas and in places that have a $7.50 minimum wage.
Ooh.
And that do not primarily have UAW representation in a lot of those plants. That's the fact.
It's hard for people in the Northeast to understand how exotically different and weird it is down there. In some states, it's far more different than going to Europe, even Eastern Europe. I think it's weird down there.
I mean, there are places in the South that I really enjoy, and I've had a blast down there, and I would love to go back.
Where were those?
I had a great time in a place called Alexander City, Alabama. It's in the middle of nowhere. Nobody's ever been there.
What were you doing there?
What they used to make more of than anything else was, those Russell Athletic sweatshirts.
Yeah.
Like that was their business there. But the thing that like, I've been around a long time, and my parents were significantly older than me. So they were from the 20s and 30s, right? They were in the textile mills in Lowell and Lawrence,
right,
and all of those places. And similar to the automotive industry, all of that business left and it all went down south, and then located down there, and then it left there and went overseas. Wow. So this chain of chasing the cheapest, the cheapest labor you can find, that was not dictated by those people who worked in those factories. That was dictated by management. They wanted cheap labor, and they got it. They found it. But now they're finding that like it's not as cheap as it used to be. So like, well, I guess, we can bring some of this stuff back here.
Okay, Wayne makes a point, pretty good point. The people that were pro trade in the beginning are different people than now.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. The previous administration, 2017 to 20, were a different group of people. I mean, they
and a lot of this seems mapped out ahead of time by Project 2025. So maybe their view is different than the people.
Could
prior.
very well be. Could
Okay,
very
let's
well
see what else.
The thing that the thing that I just don't understand is who does this? Who who are the people here in the United States that are going to be the million auto workers that get that are doing work in Mexico and Canada who are going to do it here? Like, we don't have those people. We don't have them.
It's going to be interesting. Wayne also posts, in the past, the average car loan was a 4-year loan. Not uncommon now for people to get a 7-year car loan, as you mentioned, and keep the payments affordable, but end up paying more over time and in interest payments.
Yeah, and the danger right now too is that it is very much like the housing crisis in 2008 and 2009, where or the mortgage crisis, I guess, in 2008.
People giving loans, car
People
loans,
are
people that can't pay them back.
They're upside down in their cars, like like instantly, and through 7 years you're still upside down in your car loan, which, I mean, those numbers are going up exponentially. It's kind of scary to know that people just can't. They're paying that much money on a vehicle that just isn't worth what they owe on it.
Okay, 2 more questions. One is, so what happens to all the money that's paid in these tariffs? Does the president get to keep it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tax.
Where's it go? General fund.
If you want to extend the tax reduction that we had between 2017 and 2020 for the top 1% of wage,
yeah, so that's where it's
in the United States, that's where it's going. That's where
I didn't get a tax reduction. Did you? I don't remember,
because we live in Massachusetts. Like, we were never going to get one. We lost, we lost our mortgage interest
write-off,
ability to write that stuff off. We lost it, and that really disproportionately hurt states like Massachusetts.
What bumps me out is, used to be union dues were deductible.
Right.
That went away.
Yep.
Remember when folks were
deductible that are not anymore, So, like, when you look at your overall taxes every year, ours didn't go down at all. So, you had to be really at the top 1% to really realize some significant tax savings.
Wayne asks, remember when Volkswagen wanted to open an auto plant in Tennessee, and VW was more than happy to partner with UAW because they wanted workers to have a vested interest in the plant and its success. The governor and his administration fought the whole idea to the point of putting up anti-UAW stuff on billboards. This is also depressing. My final question is, everywhere you look, it's bad news in all fronts. Plane crash, tariffs, badness, Ukraine. How do you personally deal with all the? I never see anything good. Like, I go through you.
So here's what I've done.
So I'll tell you what you go first.
Okay. So what I did was, I don't post on Facebook anymore, and as well as I do that I used to do that a lot. So I'm not looking at Facebook anymore, because even if I eliminated all of the the sort of wackadoodles and all that kind of stuff and just stuck with my friends, it was friends that were concerned with all this stuff, and I was getting bombarded by this every single day. So I stopped doing that. I increased the amount that I actually read, and I actually track it now on it's called Storygraph. So, like, I read a book, I sort of, it kind of helps me keep place on where I am. And I read 2,200 pages in January. Wow. So I'm reading a lot more. And I got rid of a streaming service, and I picked up the Criterion channel, which is fantastic.
What's that?
It's like it's like Turner Classic Movies on steroids.
Really?
It's great. It's like an amazing collection of really good quality movies, and a lot of documentaries that are about those movies and stuff. So I've been watching that almost exclusively.
What's it called?
And it's a Criterion channel. So I love it. I love it. There's no shortage of things that I can watch on demand on that thing, and I just use it through my Apple TV, and it's great.
Are there any modern movies? Or are they all classic older
Yeah,
ones?
a lot of modern stuff. So there's a lot of like it's more independent stuff. So like there are a lot of stuff that's premiered on there, but it's smaller independent movies. But then they'll do, they'll have a regular feed of some, stuff that's been out in the last 5 years or so too.
And how much is that? The usual $12.99?
It was a deal for, if I did the whole year, I think it was $78 for the year. So it's, $10 a month or less than $10 a month. And I love it. I absolutely love it. I watched a great last
those
night.
are really good suggestions. I want to add to add this to that. One thing you can do immediately is to go out, and I'm going to write a whole thing and do a whole special thing on it to make yourself feel better immediately, is go out in the world every day and be actively decent.
Yes.
To everybody you see, the guy or woman at Dunkin' Donuts. Look them in the eye and say, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And mean it.
Yep.
And buy a donut for the old poor guy in the corner.
Agreed.
That guy. And further, not tolerate any meanness.
Yeah.
Like if you insist on going on Facebook and somebody, I don't care what you say, make the point. You don't have to be a D-bag.
Right.
To do it. And I'm not going to tolerate that at all.
Yeah.
And I'll just block you. I don't care about the number of friends. Just bang, bang, bang. I'm going to be very positive and upbeat, and it makes you feel good. You get instant, your life gets better when you're decent to other people instantaneously.
Absolutely. So I will also say the other thing that has helped me a lot is regular exercise. If I get deep in my head and I'm having a bad day, and I don't care if it's, politics or work or relationships or whatever it is, if I go out and run 4 miles and I get back, I feel 1,000% better, and I'm able to process that stuff a lot easier. So I really if you're sitting there and I know it because I've done it. If you're sitting there doom scrolling through your phone,
scrolling, that's a thing that is
thing you can do is put that thing down and go for a run, go for a walk.
I go for a walk.
Look at nature, lift some weights, do something,
My process is I have my earbuds and I have my songs that I love. I'm constantly updating. I go directly to Dunkin' Donuts, get 3/4 decaf, 1/4 caffeine, and walk far.
Yeah.
And then stop by the gym a little bit on the way back for, a little bit. And you're right. Like getting out there. I don't know if it works for you, but I feel like I'm really living life when I'm walking. Like, oh, this is life. This is not preparation for or cleaning up after. This is living right here.
Correct.
That's my thing. And the music and the walking is just it's a magic carpet for me.
It totally is. It makes a huge difference. And look, I know that I am enormously privileged to be able to voluntarily turn this off.
Yeah.
A lot of people can't. A lot of people are in positions where they can't, or they're being actively assaulted and they can't, they can't turn this off. So I understand it's a privilege, and I will apologize for that.
But, no, you don't have to apologize.
But it is something that I have to do. I have to, because otherwise, I can't function.
And one further point on that. People blame the internet, and as the way I'm looking at it now is it's just a tool like a shovel or a gun.
Yep.
It all depends on how you use the tool. It's a really good tool, but people misuse it because people really aren't qualified to have it. Well, they abuse it. It's like they have a gun. They're just pointing it around, shooting it. They're not using the tool like it should be used.
Here's the thing, the social media is, I'm starting to realize now, is very, for me anyway, and I'm only talking about myself, is very much like alcohol for me. It was addictive, and I needed to walk away from it to a degree. And I did, and I feel a lot better.
Well, that's great.
But you have to have, they have to have that ability to walk away. And if you don't, like, I'm lucky enough that I walked away from booze. I walked away from cigarettes. I just have it in my constitution to be able to do that. And a lot of people don't. So if you don't, you need to get some help to do it. You need to get some therapy. You need whatever it is. You just need to start taking those steps to get yourself away from it, because it really makes a difference in your life.
Okay, that sounds like a good place to stop. 40 minutes and all. Folks, I hope you're entertained. I hope you share this. What else? You got anything you want to plug there?
Not really. I mean, I love my job. I love working for DCI. I do some work for Subaru that comes up quite a bit. We just went to the Chicago Auto Show, so we have some copy about the new Forester Wilderness and Forester Hybrid, which is a very exciting vehicle for them. So yeah, check that out. That's kind of what I'm working on at the moment.
Is it important to mention that anytime you buy, it's weird, important to mention, it's weird when a liberal buys a Tesla because you're buying a MAGA car?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it used to be, but yeah.
I wonder, is that something that just gets overlooked? I just want to point out, everybody, there are other really good hybrids and plug-in cars.
Phenomenal.
You don't need to buy a Tesla.
Yep. Correct.
I want to plug a couple things. First, I am selling my guitar. Gibson Studio. There it is.
Look at that. Handsome. Made in the USA.
Yes, made in USA. And the other thing is the radio show. It's called Ignore the Machine. Just go to Mixcloud. Cool place called Mixcloud where DJs post their mixes, and search Ignore the Machine. All right, that's it. Always a pleasure. This is great. A great excuse to talk to you, Craig.
Yeah, I love it. Thanks, Bradley.
You're welcome. Don't run away. We're almost done.